Well, hey there, Mama, and welcome back to the Moms Overcoming Overwhelm podcast, episode number 209. I'm Emily McDermott, and I'm here beside you on this journey as we work together to declutter your home, head, and heart. I am incredibly excited to bring you my conversation with Anna Dearmon Kornick today. I don't actually listen to a ton of podcasts, but hers is one I never miss. She is a highly sought after time management coach and a keynote speaker, and she is the host of the It's About Time podcast, as well as the founder of the It's About Time Academy. And she's also the author of the book Time Management Essentials, which we talk about today. She is from Louisiana, and she really does make time management fun. And just really appreciate her insights. And also she gives so many practical tips in this episode with a lot of grace. So at the very end, make sure you check out her guidance on how to implement weekly planning, even if you're super overwhelmed, just so it can help you feel less overwhelmed, but not in a, I have to sit down for 2 hours on a Sunday and plan my life kind of way. So again, I know you're going to love this conversation with Anna. Make sure to check out the show notes for all of the links. And without further ado, grab the notebook and pen and let's dive into today's conversation with Anna Dearmon Kornick. Hey Mama, are you tired of your cluttered home and mile-long to-do lists but are too overwhelmed to know where to start? Do you lack the time and motivation and don't think you'll ever conquer the clutter? You're in the right place. I'm Emily, wife, boy mom, and declutter coach who has overcome the overwhelm in my own life through decluttering and simplifying. I believe every mom deserves the peace that comes from a clutter-free home. Ready to get your life back? Let's declutter your home, head, and heart together. Well, hey, Anna, thank you so much for coming on the Moms Overcoming Overwhelm podcast. I am really excited for our chat today.
Emily, thank you so much. I'm super excited. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So you are one of the few podcasters I listen to. Don't tell any of my other podcaster friends.
Oh, thank you.
Because I am just like, we're looking for help because so many of us feel like we're completely drowning with all of our responsibilities and tasks and
Yeah.
the mental load and all the thoughts. And just to have these like actionable, encouraging episodes just been really helpful for me. And so, of course, I'm going to link to all of your stuff in the show notes, but I wanted to give you the opportunity to introduce yourself and tell us about you and your family, how you serve women, and like maybe one thing you like to do for fun.
Oh, thank you. Okay. Well, first of all, I am so honored that you listened to It's About Time. It's About Time is the podcast that I created because I wanted to know how other women were doing it. And having a podcast and being a podcaster means you get to ask people, so wait, how are you doing life? So it's been such a treat to kind of peel back the curtain with women and to also, in my solo shows, share time management tips. But my name is Anna Dearmon Kornick. I'm a time management coach. I'm host of It's About Time podcast. I'm the founder of the It's About Time Academy, and I'm the author of Time Management Essentials, the tools you need to maximize your attention, energy, and productivity. I have two little girls, Camilla and Elizabeth. Yesterday was actually their last day of school. So their last day of kindergarten and their last day of pre-K 3. So they are 4 and 6 and they are just so sweet. And, as we're recording this, we are coming off of end of year parties and ballet recitals and all of that fun stuff. And they're at such a fun age right now. But my girls and my husband Scott and I, we live in South Louisiana. We live really close to New Orleans, across Lake Pontchartrain, across the largest bridge over water in the world, or something like that, in what's called Louisiana's North Shore. And it's really cool because we have such a small town feel, but we have access to the city whenever we need it. And we just love taking advantage of all the fun Louisiana things, like going to Mardi Gras as a family in the spring and crawfish boils and festivals and football in the fall and all that good stuff. And then, gosh, in terms of things that I like to do for fun, what even comes to my mind first? Like, I love yoga. I find like yoga is my happy place. I try to get in a yoga class twice a week because it's just one of the few times that I can really empty out my mind, which feels so good. But I'll tell you what, next time we chat, Emily, I might have a different answer for you because I just found out that there is an adults hip hop dance class in in our area, and I'm gonna go check it out next week. And I'm so excited about it because I was a dancer in high school and I just really miss that group dance feel, especially having just watched my girls in their dance recital. So next time we chat, I might tell you it's my hip hop dance class, but for now I'm gonna say yoga.
Love that. I do a weekly Zumba class, so I am with you. I have
Fun!
a dance background too, and I love it. I love it so much. And my
Yes.
my brother actually, he was a member of a break dancing club at high school.
Are you serious? That is so cool.
I know. So they would be like where the wrestlers would practice. So it had the padded walls, so they could do
Yes.
like the wall flips and stuff.
That is,
I'm not that advanced, but yes, I
yeah.
love that. I love that. Yes, I can't wait to hear about the hip hop dance class for sure.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Well, I'm very excited to dive in because your book, Time Management Essentials, again, very actionable and very understanding of our reality as overwhelmed moms.
Yes.
We were talking about how like most time management books are written by men who probably don't have the same in terms of responsibilities and mental load that we do.
It's true.
Um,
Statistically, it's true. More than 90% of time management books are written by men, and it's higher than 90%, but I can't remember exactly which 90 it is. So we'll just say more than 90% are written by men. And on top of that, statistically, we know that women carry a higher percentage of invisible tasks and
yeah.
responsibilities as compared to men. So that means that the vast majority of time management material out there is not written for women.
Yeah. And I'm so glad that your voice is there because and I'm sure most people that you interact with, they're like, Anna, you got to share your favorite hack and your favorite tool. And like, I know if I just get the right planner, it's going to be fine. And I'm totally going to be okay now. And I'm not going to be overwhelmed and I'm going to get my life together. And I'm not even a time management coach. And I'll be like, I hate to break it to you,
Right.
but it's not the planner. And also, you're not a failure at life if you have blank planners
Yeah.
because, that's totally normal. So I love how you start the book about how our purpose, which has come it's our vision and our values that make up our purpose. That's like where our starting point is before you
Mhm.
get any sort of app or before you get whatever planner. And we have to start discerning what that is because that is really like the most important thing. So can you tell us a little bit about like why that's so important and how we actually start that process?
Oh my gosh, absolutely. Emily, it's so funny because as you were talking about, like, what's that one productivity hack? Like, my face was so scrunched up. Y'all can't hear it if you just have your AirPods on, but like my face was like, what? Because it's so true. And the thing is that the most common mistake that we make when we decide, I've got to figure this time management thing out. I've got to get my life in order. I need a reset. The first thing that we tend to do is go buy a new planner, or we start Googling productivity hacks, or maybe you even searched time management in Apple Podcasts and you came across my podcast, in which case, that's awesome. I love that. But we tend to look for a quick fix. We tend to look for a quick fix. But the truth is that good time management does not start on the pages of our planners. It doesn't start in a color coded Google Calendar. It doesn't even start with decluttering or a productivity hack. It starts by getting crystal clear about what matters most to you. And that's the step that so many of us want to skip. And I know that because I used to skip that step, because I used to buy a planner, and not all planners have this, but many of them do. There's a section in the front of the planner that has kind of like coaching exercises, and it's asking you to talk about your priorities and your what do you want out of life in the next year. And I'm just like, this is dumb. I'm not doing that. And so I would always, year after year, skip those vision casting pages because I just wanted to get to the doing. I just wanted to write down the dates, enter in my to-dos, and just make life happen. And then I would wonder why I felt so all over the place and restless. And the word that definitely comes to mind for how I felt 15 years ago was floundering. I felt like I was floundering. And I realized that I've always been a very goal-driven person. Ever since I was very young, I've always had something that I was working toward, whether I was working toward um, maybe some specific award in middle school or some competition in high school. I've always been very goal driven. And I realized in my early 20s that for the first time, I wasn't working toward anything. And I was just kind of existing. And I was going to my day job and I was going home, and it just felt really kind of empty because I wasn't moving toward anything. What I didn't realize at the time is that what I lacked was a vision for my life. What I lacked was clarity on what my values were. And that's what has made all the difference is really forcing myself, realizing, oh, wait, that's what I'm missing. Maybe let me, maybe let me create that vision. What is it? What do I actually want? Who am I? What are the things that actually matter most to me as opposed to what I think should matter to me or what other people tell me should matter to me? And that was, I mean, the word journey is so cheesy and overused sometimes, but it was a journey. It was a starting point from floundering to getting clearer and clearer and clearer about what it was that I wanted. And I think we all feel like that sometimes. That that floundering feeling because we don't have clarity about that vision and what our values are. And we don't have a compass or a north star to guide our way.
You're reminding me when you're saying floundering, it's reminding me of Finding Dory. It was like, just keep swimming, just keep
Yeah.
swimming. But then it's like, where are you swimming?
Where are you
Like, where are
going?
you going? You know, you can be a very like goal-driven person and be very like achievement based and high achieving. But then if you don't have the vision and you don't have the direction,
What's
then
it all
you are
for?
like literally floundering, just going 100 miles an hour in a direction that you don't
Right.
really understand. So
Yeah. I
that's
mean,
incredibly helpful.
Emily, that's why so often we feel like we're busy all day long. Like I was doing stuff all day long, but I didn't like, what did I do?
Yeah. I feel like and now it's a little bit better, but especially in those early days of motherhood where, my husband would come home and I was a stay-at-home mom until I started kind of my own business, but he'd be like, "So how was your day?" And I, being the type A achiever, I wanted to be able to like list all of the things that were like keeping me busy, you know?
Yeah.
Really, he was just like, "How are you?"
Are
And
you?
I was just like, "Oh, and we went to the library and I went to the grocery store and then we did this and then I did that." And then it was like I was busy, but then sometimes I couldn't even remember what all we did, and there really wasn't that intentionality. And I
Right.
think when I was able to kind of shift that to like, I don't have to have the end of the day have rattle off this list of everything I did,
Mm-mm.
even if it's just one thing, but it moves me in the direction of like the place where I'm actually trying to go, that's
Yeah.
okay. It's not like, and I know even in the book, you talk about, okay, like look at our priorities and like let's look at maybe our top three or top five or something that's doable.
Yeah.
But if it's our one,
Oh
that's
my
okay.
gosh.
As long as
Em-
it's going the right way.
Well, Emily, I love that you mentioned that because I was a top three. Like, what's my top three for the day? But then once I had Camilla, my 6-year-old, I started, well, I'd say I tried to keep up my top three. I tried to keep up my miracle morning routine that I had been running. And it just wasn't happening because so much about my life and me just physically as a person and having to take care of a little person that I shifted to having a top one. I did. Like when she was a newborn, when she was a baby, when I was home with her, I had a top one. Like, what is my top one for the day? And if I can just do that one thing, then I'm going to feel accomplished.
Yeah, my top one in that season was keep kids alive.
Yeah.
Every day, same top
Yes.
one.
Oh,
Keep kids
yeah.
alive.
Did it.
Did
Check.
it, check. Let's set the bar like extremely low.
Yeah. Take a shower.
Take a shower. That's a great, if that is your top one for the day, we hear you. Because it is, I
Yes.
mean, and I know you know this because you wrote a book that is from a perspective of a woman for women, there's different seasons. Like the
Oh,
seasonality of our
yeah.
life is so important. So some seasons you may just have a top one, and then you might
Right.
be able to expand to a top three or five, and that's okay.
Yeah.
The other thing that I love, like as far as, time blocking is concerned, and people, if they have any sort of time management knowledge, like they've heard of it probably, but I love in the book, you don't just kind of like explain what it is, but you explain some of the things that it helps to prevent or to help kind of put guardrails around. And
Mm.
I am a serial procrastinator. And I know, well, in the book, she talks about like good procrastination and not so good things about procrastination. But when you had mentioned Parkinson's law, which I'll let you explain, but I was like, oh my gosh, I do this for every
Yes.
single thing in my life. And that's probably why I feel stressed all the time. And just having like the time blocking helps with that. And then the planning fallacy and context switching. So I would love it if you can kind of explain how blocking off our schedule and blocking off our time can help us with these tendencies that we all tend to have as humans.
Sure thing. Okay, so time blocking. Before we get into the nitty-gritty of time blocking, I just want to say that, like, a lot of times when people hear about time management, time blocking is one of the first things that they think of. And I mean, I do consider time blocking to be one of the OG time management strategies. It's in my like top three. I call it my time management Swiss Army knife with time blocking, task batching, and theme days because those three really do form a foundation that you can mold and shift to whatever your week looks like. But it's really helpful to know the why behind what makes something like time blocking actually work. It's not just, hey, do this because somebody said so. It's let's understand why this works. And in order to understand why it works, you have to know about two productivity pitfalls. One of them is called Parkinson's law. And if you have ever said to yourself, I work so well under pressure. You give me a deadline and I'm going to make it happen. You give me like I wait till the last minute because I know that's when I'm going to make it happen. So, fun fact, you are so good at performing under pressure because of Parkinson's law. Parkinson's law states that work expands to fill the time available. Work expands to fill the time available. So that means that if your mother-in-law calls and says, hey, Anna, I'm going to stop by in 2 weeks to bring some stuff for the girls, that I'm going to clean the house off and on for 2 weeks to make sure that it is mother-in-law approved when she comes by because her house is meticulous and she does not have a housekeeper. Perfect house. Okay. And it's going to take me 2 weeks to get it there. But if she calls and she says, Anna, I'm at the front of your neighborhood. I'm going to swing by in 5 minutes, drop off the girls, and stay for dinner. You better believe that I will find a way to have that house magazine ready within 5 minutes. Okay. And we all experience this. It could have, the same exact thing could have taken me 2 weeks that I just knocked out in about 5 minutes. Because when you have a limited amount of time to get something done, you know what happens? You are forced to make decisions. You are forced to make decisions about what you do, what you won't do, what stays, what goes, and what is worth spending your time on. But when we have an unlimited amount of time to get something done, like think about a project that maybe you have in the back of your head that really doesn't have a set deadline. It might be organizing your pictures or cleaning out the attic or, you know, organizing your kids' schoolwork. There's no real deadline for this. Nobody's going to come give you a passing or failing grade. You're not going to get fired if you don't get it done. And so what happens? We piddle with it one day. We tell ourselves we'll get to it later. And the work just expands and it just becomes this mammoth thing because there is always something else that we can do to work on this because there's no endpoint. When we're not clear about a time-based deadline or what complete looks like, what done or success looks like, we will literally just keep working on that thing forever because that's just that's just the way it is. And if you have any projects that have been on your list just sitting there unfinished, that's why you've got Parkinson's law to blame because there's no clear deadline. And so the second productivity pitfall, you're going to love this one. This is going to become your favorite thing, and you're going to tell like three people about it today. It's called the planning fallacy. And the planning fallacy tells us that we consistently underestimate how much time a task will take us.
Mhm.
Let me say that again. We consistently underestimate how long we think something is going to take. And if you are like, what? That's a thing? That I do that. Congratulations, you're not alone. And I hope you feel some serious relief knowing that that feeling that you have when you always think something's going to take you 30 minutes, but it actually takes you 2 hours, that you're not the worst person in the world at estimating. Because I thought I was. I really did. I was like, I am the worst person in the whole entire world at estimating how long things take. Nope, it's everybody.
Yay.
It's everyone. And so the cool thing is that time blocking enables you to combat both Parkinson's law and the planning fallacy. Because a time block is creating a block or an appointment on your calendar that has a clear start time and an end time, and it represents a task on your to-do list. It is like setting a meeting with yourself to do a specific thing. For example, there was a time block on my calendar from 10:45 until 11 that said set up podcast equipment because that was my appointment with myself to get the podcast equipment set up for our conversation. And it's amazing because when you have a start and an end time, you're able to beat Parkinson's law because there's a set end time, okay? And you're able to beat the planning fallacy because if you're like, I think it's going to take me 30 minutes, but I know the planning fallacy exists, so let me give myself an extra 30. You're able to then beat both Parkinson's law and the planning fallacy in one fell swoop. Boom, time blocking for the win.
I actually had experiences with both of those things. We were talking about my massive photo project that I put off, just looked at the box for months and months and months. And then my mom was like, I feel like I want my photos back. I'm like, okay. So we're traveling this weekend. And so that is my deadline. And but yet I had expanded the work until that, but I had to put a deadline in place. And then also, my son, he's doing this Greek agora where they have to like sell things they made in the Greek marketplace. So he made these cardboard shields. Okay. And I'm not crafty. I have zero crafty genes. And I was kind of stressing out about being able to support him. So again, planning fallacy. I was like, okay, if I actually do a little bit, but for the entire week, instead of thinking I can do all of this in one fell swoop, I'm going to
Mm-hmm.
put aside time for the entire week to do that. And now it's almost done and I feel great and not stressed about it. But again, I had to know that and then to be able to use that knowledge to block the time every day for the paint to dry, for the second coat
Yes.
of paint to dry, like all of these things. So it just helps alleviate stress. And then it's, I think, a great way of, kind of like self-awareness and
Mhm.
self-knowledge about yourself and to know that this doesn't mean I'm broken. It doesn't mean like there's something wrong with me. It's just some of those normal cognitive biases that we have as humans that we just
Yes.
have to understand and work with. And then time blocking is like a tool for us to be able to better understand how we can accomplish things without stressing out.
100%. 100%. It's just a tool to help us with the way we are. And you know what? Just because you time block one thing on your calendar doesn't mean that you have to time block your whole life.
Yeah.
This doesn't have to be an all or nothing situation. Time block the things that you need specific guardrails around, and then let the rest be loosey goosey if you need to. It really just depends on your personality. There are some personalities that love to have that more rigid itinerary, and then there are others that the thought of time blocking makes them feel kind of itchy. So just time block one or two things that are really important and see how it feels.
Yeah, and I know that you mentioned in the book, I mean, and I kind of knew this, but as far as like context switching, and isn't it like once you're doing something and then you do switch to something else, is it 23 minutes? Do I have that right?
Yeah,
I think
I
right. As
it's
far as
funny.
like getting, I mean, I just looked at the notes yesterday from the book,
Yeah.
but it's a long time where we're thinking like, oh, I'm like so good at multitasking and I can totally do this. And if you're able to just say like, okay, I am focusing on this for like a certain amount of time because if I try to context switch and move to something else, it's going to take a really long time for my attention, and there's the attentional residue or whatever to like
Yes.
change back. So can you briefly kind of mention that and kind of like why time blocking helps with that as well?
Yes. Okay. So, one thing that's really helpful to know, first of all, is that if you are a knowledge worker, okay? So there was this study that was based on knowledge workers in America, and a knowledge worker is anybody who works behind a laptop, you know. And so that's most of us. That's most of us. And honestly, I think this probably applies to people who even aren't knowledge workers just because we all carry computers in our phone in our pockets now in the form of our phones. But there was a study that said that American knowledge workers are interrupted by some type of digital notification every 43 seconds. Okay, let's think about that. Every 43 seconds, we get hit with some kind of a distraction, like an email or a text message or a Slack message or a notification from an app, a phone call, a buzz, a ding, a ping. We every 43 seconds on average, there is some type of notification coming our way. Okay, so let's just let that sink in for a second. We can't even go a full minute without some type of external distraction. And that doesn't even count the distractions that we cause ourselves with our own thoughts in our head that send us off in a million different directions chasing squirrels and shiny things. Or the people who come into our spaces and start either asking us for snacks or asking us where that report is, like it's constant. Add to that every time we switch our attention from one thing to the next, so whether that's going from an email, writing an email, stopping and looking at a text on your phone, or you're working on a spreadsheet and then you answer a question from your kiddo who just walked into the office. Every single time we switch from one thing to the next, it takes this is where it's either 23 or 27 minutes. I should have looked at it beforehand, but it's somewhere between 23 and 27 minutes to completely shift your focus from one thing to the next. Okay, so think about that. 20, we'll say 27. 27 minutes to fully give your focus to something. And we are just hit with a distraction every 43 seconds. It is honestly a wonder that we're able to get anything done because we are constantly navigating distractions of all types and just the way that our brains work. We are not able to focus in on anything that quickly. And you mentioned attention residue. So it always reminds me of having either peanut butter or gum stuck in my hair, or maybe it's gum stuck in your hair and you're trying to get it out with peanut butter because that's a thing. But I always imagine having something stuck in my hair. Attention residue is that concept of you're focusing on one thing and then you shift quickly to the other thing. Part of your brain is still thinking about the other thing while you're working on the new thing, which means that you are not able to give your full attention to the new thing. What happens when we can't give our full attention to the new thing? We make mistakes. It takes us longer. We fumble around and then we get distracted again. Okay. And so, context switching, that shifting from one thing to the next, is what we are actually doing when we think we're multitasking. So, my friends, if you have ever said, "Oh, I am a pro at multitasking, I am like really good at multitasking," you're not. I'm sorry. I really hate to burst your bubble, but studies have shown that multitasking truly is not a thing. And the funniest part of it all is that people who report being good at multitasking have shown to be even worse at handling multiple tasks at once compared to people who admit to not being good at multitasking.
Wow.
So chances are, and it drives me nuts because there are so many job descriptions out there that say that they are looking for someone who is good at multitasking. What they don't realize is they want someone who's good at project management.
Yeah.
There's a huge, like, that's a completely different conversation. But if you are someone who is really good at juggling different projects at once, like, oh yeah, I'm really good at managing multiple clients at once, try and just shift the language around it. Yeah, I'm really awesome at managing multiple clients at once. I'm really awesome at managing multiple projects at once because you are not good at multitasking. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
No one is.
I
And
love
that's okay.
I love the tough love. It's important because also, I feel like there's the stuff we always hear. We're like, yeah, 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 turn off my notifications. Okay, yeah, I get it. But we don't actually understand like the science behind how it's messing up, our ability to be able to focus. And I've been using some different like a focus app, just real simple, but just so like I know that the dings and the pings and I'm not going on social media and I don't have that kind of like distraction. And it's just made me feel so much calmer. So like when we think about
Mhm.
overwhelm and the anxiety that is so prevalent in our lives, a lot of it is because we're just getting constantly interrupted. And so it's like, I mean, I don't even know, but I'm sure it impacts our cortisol. It impacts like all of these, yeah, stress hormones. And so it's just a way, it's not because it's like, I don't know. It's kind of the advice that everyone gives you, but it's actually really good advice. So please do
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what, Emily, I have always been that kid who wants to know why. Like, don't just tell me to do something if you're not going to tell me why I should do it. I'm sure my teachers and my parents loved this about me growing up. But I mean, you go back, if you've ever read Better Than Before by Gretchen Rubin, it's such a classic book about habits. And she came out with the four tendencies not too long after. And I'm a hardcore questioner. I need to understand the why behind something in order to implement it. And I know that not everybody is a questioner, not everybody needs that, but I do. And so I'll just go ahead and find out the why for everybody else. And if it helps you, awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's great. I am married to a questioner, so I can appreciate that. Okay, one of the things, again, like I know a lot of this kind of like basic time management 101 stuff, but something
Mhm.
that kind of like blew my mind was when you talk about the ideal week, but then you
Mm.
talked about how you can have your ideal week potentially be a calendar that you could have like a Google Calendar that
Oh,
would say ideal week, and then visually when you're actually doing our weekly planning session, which is like kind of the a different side of the same coin that I want to get into, that you can actually like visually see, well, what is the ideal that I want
yeah.
that? And that just blew my mind because we normally do, Google Calendar. I have a family calendar of personal. And so nothing super complicated, but it is very helpful for me and visually to be able to see kind of what's going on. But I would love it if you could kind of walk us through kind of like why creating the ideal week is important, and then how that kind of leads into a weekly planning session as we're sitting down to look at the week ahead.
Oh, happy to. 100%. And so, I love that you're asking about the concept of the ideal week and that you're asking about it at this point in our conversation because we've already talked about the importance of vision and values, and we've talked about time blocking as one of the incredibly important OG foundational time management strategies because time good time management has to build. It has to be a layered approach. You're not just going to start one day and within an hour have every single thing about time management figured out. To me, it all kind of leads from starting with your vision, your values, using that to guide your priorities and your goals, and then creating the rhythms of your week. There are five essential routines that I swear by in order to thrive. Quick preview: morning routine, evening routine, workday shutdown, workday startup, and your weekly planning session. With those five routines in place, you're unstoppable. And then once you've got those five routines, let's craft a template for your week. Now, sometimes I call this an ideal week. I've called it a winning week. I've called it best week ever. Doesn't matter what you call it. What it is creating a visual representation in a grid or a weekly view calendar format of how you would spend your time in your ideal week. And that means having space for a solid night's sleep. That means having space for the things in your life that fill your cup, the things that are not urgent but are important to you. In the It's About Time Academy, we call those boulders. Really making space for things like one-on-one time with your spouse, quality time with your kids, social time, time for your spirituality, time for your health and wellness routines, working out, meal planning, space for your actual five essential routines. And when creating an ideal week, we start with what are those foundations of my life? Where's the sleep go? Where does the taking care of myself go? Where do those boulders fit into place? Once you have the boulders fit into place, and the reason why we put those things in first is because very often we have this bias for urgency. And going to the gym is very rarely going to be urgent. Having a date night with your spouse or quality time with your kids is very rarely going to be urgent. And so what ends up happening is that those activities, those things in our life that help us be our best self and the different roles and responsibilities that we have, they end up getting the scraps of our time because we tend to have that urgency bias where it's like, no, I need to do this now. I need to tackle this urgent thing because it's on deadline. And then those things that make us who we truly are start to suffer. Our relationships, our health, our spirituality, our finances, our professional development, all those things. So we put those important things in first. And then we look at the open space and we're like, okay, so if I am consistently caring for myself and showing up as my best self in the roles and responsibilities I have, here's the visual space that I have available for the urgency. And this is kind of mind-blowing sometimes because when you are operating from a to-do list on a piece of paper, there's no visual explanation or representation of how long something takes you. You can have an item on your to-do list for the day that takes an hour and a half right next to an item that takes 30 seconds. And then we get to the end of the day and we're disappointed in ourselves because we didn't do all 37 things on our list. Well, the amazing thing about an ideal week is that it very cut and dry visually shows you how much time you have available to place things. And so I love this exercise of designing an ideal week because, so often people say I never have enough time to do all the things that I want to do, but an ideal week is how you actually find that time. And you're confronted with the reality of us having a finite amount of time each day. And this is another reason why I love to focus on an ideal week versus a perfect day. Because a lot of times early in time management, when we're trying to get it together, we think, okay, what would my perfect day look like? But even the most perfect day is not going to have enough space in it for all of the things that make us who we are. I mean, can you imagine? My perfect day, I would do yoga and I would do a strength workout and I would go for a 20-minute walk and I would have a date night with my husband and I would have coffee with my friends and I would have one-on-one time with my kids and I would go to church and it's like, no, that's not, we can't do everything in one day, but we can certainly spread things out across a week. Yeah. Okay. And so really following this exercise of placing in those things that help you be your best self in your different roles and responsibilities. And then identifying, okay, what's the space that I have left? This is where you plug and play the urgency from week to week. Okay, so this is where it really starts to be a template. Like I know that I want to dedicate from 9 o'clock until 1 o'clock to work or marketing in my business. And I know that Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays, I'm going to have that blocked off for client calls or podcast interviews and just being really specific about how you want to use that time. And the really cool thing is that, and whenever you, and I'm kind of getting into theme days here, but incorporating theme days into your ideal week, what it ends up doing is it decreases the decisions that you have to make. Because that's why so many of us feel overwhelmed is because we are overwhelmed with decisions that need to be made and decisions that need to be made and opportunities that we want to consider. But when we decide in advance, okay, well, Tuesday is going to be my client work day. If a client wants to meet with you on Thursday, that's an easy decision. Yeah. Oh no, Tuesdays are my client work day. And the only decision that you have to make now is, do I want to make an exception? Okay, so we're able to decrease our decisions. And we want to do that as much as we can because the numbers are something like we as adults make 35,000 decisions every single day. 252 of those approximately are just about food alone. And so any opportunity we have to decrease our decision making is going to decrease that decision fatigue that we so often feel that leads to our overwhelm. And so, really and truly, and creating an ideal week is an important dose of reality, but it's also a really exciting way to see the possibilities
Mhm.
of what your week could look like. And also giving yourself the grace to not be too perfect with it, knowing that your ideal week is going to evolve over time, that it might take some time to transition your real week to match your ideal week, because it's not often that we can just snap our fingers and shift our entire life into a new schedule. But having it and making those decisions, it gives you so much clarity.
Yeah, like we talk about decision fatigue all the time on this show because having less stuff means there's less choices, which means less decision fatigue. And so when you said 35,000, I'm like, yes, I know that number. And then when you
Yeah.
said the food one, I'm like, I didn't know that number, but I'm going to start remembering that. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh, I love that. And I totally agree. Sometimes I will even say like my realistic ideal week, meaning like when you're talking, we talked about the planning fallacy,
Yeah.
right? So we don't want to come up with our ideal week and then have it be like not realistic to the amount of time that would
Yeah.
actually make sense. So it's
Right.
not like my ideal week is that I'm laying on a beach in Mexico. No, we're talking
No.
about like your actual real life.
Yeah.
But the ideal, like you said, starting with those priorities and the boulders and everything, and then being like, okay, well, realistically, this is how much time it takes me to get ready in the morning if I'm doing my normal routine. It's not like you're
Hmm.
having like a spa day every day or
Right.
something.
Yeah.
So I find it incredibly helpful. And I want to kind of like close out with the weekly planning session but from the perspective of we are in an overwhelmed kind of like crazy season, let's just say. And so the thought of like, and I'm just playing kind of like the devil's advocate, like, okay, Anna, this all sounds wonderful. But I don't even feel like I can just like sit down and just plan out my week because things are so like bonkers and crazy right now. So what would you recommend kind of as sort of that baseline? This is a really intense season, but you want to do some sort of iteration of a weekly planning session, but you
Yeah.
just can't wrap your mind around doing this. Like, I'm going to sit down for an hour on a Sunday and figure this out. So, like, can you give us some realism here about
Yeah.
what a weekly planning session could look like in that kind
Oh
of
my God.
season?
1,000%. And let me tell you this, the idea of having to sit down for an hour and do anything is enough to make us want to just not. Like, that doesn't sound fun at all. What I will tell you is that sometimes you have to reset before you can get into a routine. You think about whenever you move into a house, okay? You're moving into a house. You want to have the house deep cleaned before you move in or shortly after you move in, right? Because you can't move into a brand new house and instantly start like weekly cleaning routines because there's going to be a reset needed at the very beginning to almost start with a clean slate. Okay? So that's kind of the way I think about it. And so if you are thinking it's a crazy season, I want it to be a little less crazy, but I don't see how on earth I'm going to fit in a weekly planning session. What I would love to tell you is to first like start small and think about last week. Okay, so just right now think about last week and I want you to run through in your mind the times that you felt frustrated or the times that you felt like friction because frustration, we know what that feels like, but sometimes we just feel like friction, like this is harder than it should be. So when you feel frustration or you feel friction, that is a really good clue of an opportunity to make a decision in advance and to incorporate something into your weekly planning session. So if you felt friction around chasing down the baseball pants before practice, it might be a good idea on a weekly basis on Sunday to take a look ahead at what days do we have practice? Let me go ahead and get the pants together. Or if you felt frustrated because you realized it was, oh my gosh, we had this end of school year event and we didn't have dinner planned after. And I really didn't want to spend $100 taking everybody out to eat or $50 getting fast food. And then you feel frustrated with yourself because you didn't have a plan for meals. Maybe that's a clue that once a week during your I don't even want to call it a weekly planning session because sometimes that feels daunting. Call it a weekly reset. Call it whatever you need to call it. Weekly fun time. I don't care. Just so that you'll do it. But maybe that is a clue that on Sunday, you can look ahead to the week and be like, okay, we've got this after school event that's going to have us out of the house till like 6. So let me throw something in the crock pot on Wednesday morning.
Mm-hmm.
Let's plan to do takeout because sometimes when you plan to do takeout, it just feels better internally than feeling forced to do it. So just think right now about last week. When did you feel frustrated? When did you feel friction? And how can you this coming weekend head those off at the pass? Like, what decisions can you make in advance? A couple things that we do in our house that take like my whole weekly planning session is maybe 15 minutes at this point, and I don't even sit down and do it all in one sitting. I don't even sit down and do it half the time. I stand at the kitchen island and do it while the girls are eating Lucky Charms and watching cartoons. I like to take a look at my week ahead and get an idea of what's coming. I like to look for the tough spots, is what I call them. When do we have late nights? When do we have childcare pickup conflicts? Like, what feels tough about this week? And then we sort those things out. I'd be like, Scott, can you pick up Millie on this day? And I will literally create calendar invites and invite my husband to it. And it will say, Scott, Millie Carline. So that is a huge communication tool for us. And it's so easy and so quick. I also check the weather and I pull all of my girls' clothes for the week on Sundays so that it's just done. I mean, they're only 4 and 6. My 6-year-old, up until yesterday, wore uniforms every day. So that made it easy. But there is zero running around our house in the morning looking for a uniform skirt, which makes our days start on such a smooth note. Because when your morning starts off like chaos, it impacts your whole day. And so we do everything we can on the weekend to make sure that we have a smooth morning. And you know what? If all I do in my weekly planning session is identify the tough spots, communicate to my husband, and pick out our outfits for the week, we're gold. We're good. That's my bare minimum. So, what is your bare minimum? And start there.
Oh, that's so incredibly helpful. That's so helpful because it's like takes the pressure off.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't have to be the sit down thing. It doesn't have to be like this uninterrupted. It's sometimes just like you said, look ahead, figure out what's going on, be able
Yeah.
to anticipate, and then prioritize kind of those things we get. This has been so helpful. And I just have learned so much from the book, but then I just also kind of going deeper in this conversation was such a joy. So I would love it if you could tell everyone the best way to connect with you, to listen to the podcast, all the things. Tell us all the things.
Yes. Well, thank you so much. This has been such a treat, Emily. Well, y'all, if you're listening to a podcast right now, just hop over to the search bar in your podcast app and search It's About Time. My podcast will come up. Go ahead and hit subscribe. I have new episodes that go live every single Monday that either have me asking go-getters how they're getting things done, because I want to know what works for other women, or sharing what I'm learning about time management, sharing tips and strategies that actually work because I've tested them out. So definitely check out It's About Time. That's where I share all of my best stuff. But if you are looking to take your time management to the next level, I am running the Take Back Your Time Challenge coming up soon. So just head to abouttimechallenge.com and go ahead and grab your seat for the next one.
Yay. Oh, wonderful. Well, I will link to all of that in the show notes. So thank you so much, Anna. This has been just a joy chatting with you.
Well, thank you.
Hey, Mama, thanks so much for listening. If you enjoyed today's show, could you please share this episode with another mom who is feeling overwhelmed? Also, it would mean the world to me if you could leave a 5-star written review wherever you listen to your podcast. Finally, if you would like more support, come on over to our free Facebook group, tinyurl.com/moms overcoming overwhelm. Can't wait to connect with you soon.